In June of last year, a team of researchers published something strange. They had built a machine learning model to estimate the age of ancient handwriting, and they named it Enoch, after the man in Genesis who walked with God and never died. They pointed it at the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest surviving copies of the Hebrew Bible. And the dates came back older than the ones scholars had been working with for 70 years. Not by a little, in some cases by 50 to 100 years old enough that two specific fragments now sit close enough to the presumed lifetimes of their own authors that the researchers reached for a phrase they'd normally avoid: first editions. Here's what the study actually found, and here's the part almost no headline mentioned. Start with what these actually are. Between 1947 and 1956, in 11 caves above the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea, near a ruin called Qumran, roughly 900 manuscripts were recovered. Most of them in fragments, some no bigger than a fingernail. Among them, copies of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible: Isaiah, almost complete Psalms, Genesis, Daniel, Ecclesiastes alongside them. Texts that never entered any canon, community rules, hymns, a scroll describing a war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. Before Qumran, the oldest complete Hebrew Bible manuscripts available to scholars dated to roughly the 10th century AD. The scrolls pushed that back by more than 1,000 years in a single decade. That's why the dates matter so much. These fragments are the closest thing we have to the text as it stood before the long centuries of copying. Every question about how faithfully the Bible was transmitted runs through this material. And for 70 years, we've been estimating their age with a method that is more art than measurement. The method is called paleography dating, a manuscript by the shape of its letters. It works on a reasonable premise: handwriting styles change over time. The way architecture or clothing does, a trained specialist compares the letter forms in an undated manuscript against examples whose dates are known, and estimates where in the sequence it belongs. The problem is what happens when you don't have many securely dated examples to anchor the sequence for the scrolls. There were very few, so specialists built the sequence largely by comparing the scrolls to each other, arranging them into a developmental order, then assigning date ranges to the order itself. You can probably see the difficulty. If the anchors are thin, the whole chain floats. A confident-looking date of 150 to 50 BC can rest on a chain of judgments about which letter form looks more developed than another. That isn't sloppiness. It was the best available tool applied carefully by serious people. But it is estimation, not measurement. And the specialists themselves said so. What was missing was a way to check the chain against something physical. The team, led by Mladen Popović at the University of Groningen, did two things at once. First, the physical anchor. They took tiny samples from 24 scrolls and radiocarbon dated them. Carbon dating doesn't care what the letters look like. It measures the decay of carbon-14 in the organic material itself, the animal skin the text was written on. It gives you a range, with error bars grounded in physics rather than in judgment. Second, the pattern matching. They trained a machine learning model on images of those 24 now securely dated manuscripts, teaching it to associate measurable geometric features of the handwriting with the carbon dates. Then they turned it loose on 135 undated scrolls. That's the model they called Enoch. And this is worth being precise about, because it's where most coverage got sloppy. Enoch is not reading the text. It has no idea what the words mean. It is measuring the shapes of strokes and comparing them against shapes whose age is anchored in Carter. It's a very sophisticated ruler. When they compared Enoch's estimates against the paleographers' estimates, the two agreed roughly 79% of the time.
Let me stop on that number, because it's the most important one in the study, and it almost never made it into a headline. 79% agreement is genuinely impressive for a new method. It also means that in about 1 case out of 5, the machine and the specialist disagreed. That is not a footnote. It's the honest shape of the result. And there's a second limit that matters more. Carbon dating tells you when the animal died, when the skin was made. Enoch tells you when the handwriting style was likely in use. Neither one tells you when the words were composed. A scroll can be a copy of a copy of a copy. Dating the manuscript is not the same as dating the text. I'm laboring this because the temptation runs in both directions. If you want the Bible to be older and more reliable, this study looks like ammunition. If you want it to be later and more constructed, you can point at the 21% and call the whole thing unsettled. Both of those are ways of not reading the paper. What the study actually delivers is narrower and more useful. For the first time, the dating of this material has a physical anchor underneath it, instead of only a chain of expert comparisons. That's a real gain. It just isn't a verdict. Now the part that made news and deserves to. 2 fragments came back with dates that put them uncomfortably close to the men who are thought to have written them. The first is catalogued as 4Q Daniel C, a fragment of the book of Daniel. Enoch's estimate places it in the early 160s BC, which is, according to mainstream scholarship, roughly when the final form of Daniel was being assembled. The second is 4Q Qoheleth A. Qoheleth is the Hebrew name for the book we call Ecclesiastes, the one that opens with everything being vapor, breath, meaningless. Its fragment dated to the 3rd century BC, which again lands in the window scholars had already proposed for when Ecclesiastes was composed. Think about what that means carefully. Not, we found the original. What we may have found is a copy made while the ink on the original was, historically speaking, still wet. Within a generation, possibly within a lifetime. There is no other biblical manuscript in the world where we can say that. That's why the researchers use the phrase first editions, and why they put it in careful language when they did. Here's the part that makes this more than a paper you'll never read. Right now, as I publish this, actual Dead Sea Scroll fragments are on
public display in Washington, D.C. The Museum of the Bible opened Dead Sea Scrolls, the exhibition in November of 2025, in partnership with the Israel Antiquities Authority, more than 200 artifacts from Israel's national collection, including the Magdala stone and timbers from a fishing boat pulled out of the Sea of Galilee during a drought in 1986. The scroll fragments themselves are shown in 3 rotations because parchment that survived 2,000 years in a cave can be destroyed by a few months of light. And the exhibition closes in September of 2026. Which means at the time you're watching this, you have weeks, not years. I want to be exact about 2 things because it would be easy to blur them for effect. First, I have no source telling me that the 2 fragments from the Enoch study, the Daniel and the Ecclesiastes ones, are among the pieces currently on display. They may not be. Those are 2 separate facts I'm putting side by side, not one fact. Second, because the fragments rotate, I can't tell you what's in the case this month. Check the museum's site before you drive anywhere. What I can tell you is that this is the rare moment when the object at the center of a scientific argument is sitting in a case a few hours' drive from most of the people watching this. That doesn't happen often with a story like this one. So what actually changed in June of last year? Not the text. Nobody found a new book and nobody found a variant reading that overturns anything. The words on these fragments were already published and already studied. What changed is the ground under the dates. A chain of expert judgment now has physical measurements tied to parts of it. And when that happened, the chain didn't hold still. It slid earlier. Scripts that were confidently placed in the mid-1st century BC may belong to the late 2nd. Some scrolls may be 50 to 100 years older than the labels on them. If that holds up under scrutiny, and it will be scrutinized, that's how this works, then the window between when these texts were composed and when our earliest surviving copies were made gets narrower. Not closed, narrower. I said at the start that 2 fragments might be first editions. I'll be straight with you now that you've seen the reasoning. I think that phrase is doing more work than the evidence can carry. It's the researchers' phrase, not mine, and even they hedged it. What I'd say instead is duller and I think more remarkable. For the first time, we may be holding copies made close enough to the authors that the gap stops being centuries and starts being years. Duller sentence. Bigger claim. Honestly stated.
Lay it end to end. A collection of manuscripts that pushed our earliest Hebrew Bible back 1,000 years, dated for 70 years by a method its own practitioners called estimation. A model named after the man who walked with God, trained on 24. Scrolls whose ages were fixed by physics rather than judgment. 135 undated manuscripts run through it. Agreement with the specialists 4 times out of 5, and honest disagreement the 5th. 2 fragments landing so close to their presumed authors that the researchers reached for language they had to immediately qualify. And the fragments themselves sitting in a display case in Washington, on a clock that runs out in September. None of this proves the Bible. I want to keep saying that, because the moment a channel like this one stops saying it, it stops being worth watching. What it does is close a distance that everyone assumed was permanent, and it closes it not with a discovery in a cave, but with carbon and geometry, and someone deciding to name a measuring instrument after a man who never died. The oldest copies of the oldest book we have are getting older, slowly, carefully, with error bars. That's not nothing. There's one more thing, and it's the reason I couldn't leave this story alone. The researchers named their model after Enoch. Not a random choice. Enoch is the figure in Genesis credited in later tradition with receiving knowledge that wasn't supposed to be written down. There's an entire book attributed to him, quoted once in the New Testament and cut out of nearly every Bible on earth. I made a full investigation of that book on this channel, and if this video interested you, that one is the natural next stop. I'll put it on the screen at the end. A team of scientists took the name of the man associated with forbidden knowledge and gave it to a machine built to read handwriting that outlived every empire that tried to bury it. I don't think they were making a theological point. I think they just knew a good name when they saw one. If you want the next investigation like this, the next object, the next argument, the next thing the ground or the lab gives up, subscribing is genuinely the only way you'll see it here first. I post one of these every week, and I'd rather have you along for the next one than hope you find your way back by accident. Hit subscribe now, while it's on your mind. This is Shrouded Scrolls. The ground remembers more than we do.